This is still the conversation on News Central Television. And on the first half of the program, we're examining the proposal by the labor unions concerning the new minimum wage. Now, workers, according to the NLC, in a recent interview said workers would rather work for free than accept 48,000 naira, as the new minimum wage. Now, the Nigerian Labour Congress has warned that it would rather mobilize workers to remain at home with their families or even offer their services for free rather than accept the new minimum wage proposed by the federal government, which is the sum of 48,000 naira. The reason is this. They say it's far below what the Labour is proposing, which is 615,000 naira as the new minimum wage. Well, joining me on the program to make sense of this is Jide Ojo. He's a public affairs analyst who joins from Abuja. Thank you for making our time to be on the program. Well, let's look at the proposed amount by the Labour, which is 615,000 naira, and what, of course, the federal government is proposing, 48,000 naira. How realistic would you say this proposed amount is, particularly by Labour?
Well, Dapo, thank you for having me. Incidentally, last week, Tuesday, I wrote about this in this day newspaper when I was asked to do an opinion for them in the lawyer pullout of this day last week. And my own position is this. It's a catch-22 situation we find ourselves. Even the 48 being proposed by the federal government or the 54 by the organized private sector, the question is how many states will pay. Federal government may pay, but local government workers, state workers, how many of them will pay this minimum wage of 48,000? I learned that Labour, I don't know how far that is true, has also rejected 100,000. Whether that was proposed, I don't know. But I guess there is another meeting tomorrow which Labour has said they will attend. The point is, we need to be very realistic. Arguments I advanced in my article: sustainability and affordability. Yes, to call for sit at home, but will that be also in the best interest of can afford to be at home and not get paid for if I think the Nigerian labor unions should not push the workers into situation where they themselves, the workers, will turn against their leadership. The point is, when you go through the history of national minimum wage, it has always been a very dicey thing. There was a time 125 was minimum wage. There was a time 5,000 was minimum wage. There was a time 18,000 was minimum wage. 19. In all of this, there are many governors that couldn't pay the minimum wage. Ralph Adegboye between 2010 and 2018 had to be paying workers in percentages. As we speak, the Obasanjo said he's finding it extremely difficult to even pay the 30,000. You raise it to 100,000, and which they rejected. Whatever you push it to, this can be agreed to, signed, even if you say 615,000. Federal government will say, okay, if that is your wish, we will grant your wish. But the next thing is that you see workers being hold backlog of salaries. You see retrenchment.
I mean,
right sizing and downsizing. So it's that's why I'm saying we need to be very careful how yes, I quite agree. And my own proposed position is that labor deserves between 70 to 100,000 minimum wage. That is my own upper limit, 100,000. Even at that, I'm very conscious that not all the state government may be able to pay.
I mean,
But I have also called
you've
for
made some pivotal
decentralization of
points here,
negotiation.
but I mean, you talked about your own position being between 70 to 100,000. Some would even argue that, what is the basic standard of living right now when it comes to even feeding a bag of rice, for instance, you know how much it goes for now. If you're on a band A platform, when it comes to electricity, it's pretty much prices.
But don't go to a bag of rice.
Okay.
How many families, even where rice was 20,000 per bag, how many families buy a bag of rice to keep in their homes? The time has called for everybody to engage in austere measures. I am not against welfare of workers. I'm also a worker in a sense, even though I'm self-employed. But the truth that has to be told is that the affordability and the sustainability, those are the two key factors in all of this. Because even you that is working for the organized private sector, I'm sure your employer will look at it. Assuming there is 100,000 minimum wage, I don't know how much you earn now. That is 100,000 means over 300% or over 200% of minimum wage. So the point is, unless you are able to raise productivity, you will find a situation where employers of labor will right size. And what I've seen as a causal effect of all of this pressure on the employers is the casualization. Look at the organized private sector. Many factories, many industries, financial institutions are now going the way of casualization. They are not employing fully again. All they do is that they get a recruitment agency to get them staff and pay the recruitment agency. Let's assume that they pay them 100,000 for each of the staff. Then the recruitment agency will do plus and minus, take administrative cost on it, and at the end of the day may only pay the workers half of that amount. But casualization means that you are not entitled to health benefit, no transport benefit, no housing benefit, no benefits of sort. And even if you spend 20, 30 years as a casual staff, you go on with your last pay. There is no pension, no gratuity. So that's what the organized private sector has used as a way to reduce their operational cost. And you can see that in many banking, banks and other financial institutions, many factories, many industries are now going the way of casualization. So I'm only playing, I'm putting the two sides. I'm saying, yes, labor deserves minimum wage. But if you are not very careful and you push government to a corner, it might be a Pyrrhic victory where you win the battle, but you will not enjoy the peace. Because we have seen many state government owing workers backlog of salaries.
Yes. Let's also examine it from this perspective too. I mean, you've made a salient point talking about sustainability and the capacity of certain states to be able to meet up. That, of course, has been gotten. But some economists, some experts are saying the issue right here isn't about the volume of money, but the quality. By quality, I mean the value that money can serve you. So if, for instance, the standard of living keeps going up and the volume of money keeps going up, then you're talking of an issue of maybe inflation. It doesn't really, cut it. So I just want to know your take on this. Is Labour going about this the right way, or are they getting it all skewed up at some point? Should it be about the volume of the money or the value the money can the money can bring you?
Now, these are two different things. The purchasing power of Naira is very weak. is very weak as we speak. So let me give you this scenario, Dapo. Many state government will tell you, oh, you want us to pay you 100,000 minimum wage, no problem. But what is the size of the workforce of government? Less than 10% of the state population. They will tell you they cannot be a governor who pays only salary. They have to also staff the remaining 90% who are not government employees. So they have to provide infrastructure, they have to provide social amenities and whatever. But beyond and above is also the operational cost of governance. As you and I are complaining about the rising cost of living, so is government also facing the same challenge. They have to pay utility, they have to pay security, they have to pay electricity, they have to pay water. Remember the electricity distribution company threatened to disconnect the ASO presidential villa for owing electricity bill in hundreds of millions. So many ministries, departments, and agencies also have to up their own operational cost. So at the end of the day, it's a catch-22 situation. And when you go by the argument of purchasing power, the point is that if care is not taken, when you give salary increase that is not backed by productivity, definitely there will be inflation. Because the moment you increase workers' salary, even without the workers' salary being increased, landlords have increased rent. Market men and women have increased cost of commodities, particularly food items, and it will still go up the moment there is an announcement of new minimum wage. They don't want to know who is working for himself, who is unemployed. You go to the same market. So the reality that faces us is that there must be a win-win situation fashioned out where both labor and the government will come to an agreement. All this talk of 615,000 minimum wage will not gel. I recall that as at the time they agreed on 30,000 minimum wage, labor was asking for, is it 100 and something thousand at that time? Also talking about inflation and cost of living and all of that. The bottom line is that Nigeria is not producing enough. And when salary increase is not backed by productivity, there are bound to be inflation anytime that happens. And I have also made an argument that why can't we alter the labor law and allow federal government to negotiate with federal workers union and allow states to also negotiate with the state unions. That way, because the reason why I'm making that argument is this. When you look at Rivers State, let's look at their budget. Lagos State budget in 2024 is over 2 trillion. The budget of Rivers State in 2024 is 800 billion. But Nasarawa State, which is the adjoining state to Abuja here, the budget is about 115 billion. It tells you the story that states are not equally endowed. And while some states like Lagos, like Rivers, like Bayelsa, like Delta, like Kano, like Kaduna, may have significant internally generated revenue. It is not so for many states. There are so many states that are agrarian states that don't even generate up to 1 billion in IGR. So they rely solely on what they get from federal allocation. And many of these states are already bogged down with heavy indebtedness that was
so is it okay to say, is it okay to say that labor is going about this the wrong way?
Well, not the wrong way. Labor is following the ILO convention. That's International Labour Organization, and then there is a labor law in Nigeria. So they have just following the text. But I'm saying beyond the textbook, beyond the ILO convention, let's look at the reality of our own existence. You know, it is in the same labor law that talks of no work, no pay. When the federal government under Buhari, the former president Muhammadu Buhari, applied no work, no pay to ASU, all hell was let loose. They say, oh, there is no pay, no work. They now turn it around that if you don't pay us, we will not work. And that was how schools were shut for 10 months in 2020, and in 2022, another 8 months. Now, this administration, out of magnanimity, has released or promised to give 4 months out of those 8 months. So if labor unions want to push workers to do sit-at-home, they should also be mindful of that ILO convention that talks of no work, no pay. But the reality that stares us in the face, I'm not saying they are going about the wrong way. Like I said, there are labor laws. There are even industrial courts that can mediate in this kind of thing. But the affordability and the sustainability questions have to be answered. Because it is one thing for you to say you have the ability. Many of when I listen to labor leaders say, oh, states have the capacity to pay. Don't say that. They employ 508. They have this, that. How many governors have up to 38? It's only in one or two isolated instances you see them having.
Well, in terms of
aids.
states having the capacity, some would even also tell you that it's actually possible because some states, because of allocation, have refused to bleed themselves to productivity. They feel that, okay, once the money comes, then they pay salaries and they're good to go. Some would argue considerably that if some states, look internally, they have what it takes to ensure that, they generate revenue and meet up. So maybe not at the level of certain states, maybe like the likes of Rivers, and some oil-producing states, but some will tell you that, yes, aside allocation, they have what it takes if they truly look inward, have the capacity to generate income, and maybe even meet up.
Dapo, let me tell you the honest truth. I'm not a partisan person, but I've followed through. I'm a political scientist. I've followed through governance in the last 25 years. The truth people don't want to hear is this. How many of us pay taxes? Just the cybersecurity levy, all hell was let loose recently. Just like 1 week ago, Labour said they will mobilize, shut down, that. Now, cybersecurity, when they did the costing, they saw that Nigeria would be making over 150 billion annually from that. Now, that is just 10 naira, 15 naira, and all of that. Now, if you go to states, you are saying internally generated. How do you want to ensure internally? The only thing that can bring you more money in states is if there are industries, you surcharge them. I mean, the industries are supposed to pay tax. But how many factories are in existence in Nigeria? I did an article in my column in the Punch last 2 weeks, and I did from Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, over 700 industries are shut down in 2023 alone. So situations where you want to improve your internally generated revenue and you decide that every adult should pay tax, even let's say should pay 10,000 naira as annual tax, you will see how people will kick against it. And that governor, the rest assured, will lose at the next election. People don't pay tax. Nigeria has one of the lowest in the world tax to GDP ratio. So if you don't want people to be made to pay tax, how then do you intend to increase IGR? Because the industries are not there. Only very handful industries exist at all, and some of them are not even operating at full capacity because of the rising cost of doing business. They have to pay security, pay electricity, pay payee tax, they
All
also
right,
have to
Jide.
pay to federal government. So at the end of the day, you also need to balance things out. It's a sexy agreement to say, oh, improve your IGR, think out of the box. I agree to fiscal federalism, but it will take us the route of constitutional alteration.
All right.
Let every state control their own resources. Nasarawa State has over 34 solid minerals in commercial quantities, but it cannot exploit these resources because
Jide, we
it's
need to go
under
on
the
this first
federal
half.
or under the exclusive legislative list.
We need to go on this first half. Jide, thank you so much for your insight on the program today. Thank you.
My pleasure. Have a great weekend.